You know, we are dumping 110 million tons a day, every day. In a couple of years, that's 1 billion tons that we're putting into the atmosphere. And as Al Gore said, the atmosphere isn't that big. It's a film around the planet. It's not this big blanket. We here in Pennsylvania are a huge part of the problem. The other one.
Yes, that's.
All right, I got it. It's right there. Pennsylvania is a major emitter of greenhouse gases. If we look at Pennsylvania on its own, and we kind of list of the countries of the world, Pennsylvania would be number 22.
Oh, shit.
Honestly, we really do. And of course, we come by it honestly. This is the birthplace of the petroleum industry. This is where coal mining in the United States started. This is, for that matter, it's where the first commercial nuclear reactor was. You know, all that bad stuff right here in Pennsylvania. We're burning coal, not so much anymore. You see coals in the dark blue one on the left. It's gone down and down. When you get to the residential thing, coal isn't even a factor, of course. But we are compensating for that by burning lots and lots of natural gas. And if you believe the gas company, that's great. You know, it's clean energy. Unfortunately, that's not true. The process of drilling, transporting, and processing natural gas releases vast amounts of methane. Methane is also a greenhouse gas. It is 25 times more powerful as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So anything that we gain from natural gas over coal, apart from the particulate matter, I'll give you that, but it's made up for by these releases of methane, which are constant and not necessarily purposeful anymore. There are all these abandoned oil and gas wells in Pennsylvania alone. The Department of Environmental Protection says their list has 12,000 abandoned gas wells on it. A realistic estimate of the number of wells that have been drilled for oil and gas in Pennsylvania is 970,000. This is a huge problem, and every day those gas wells are leaking methane, brine, and petroleum all day long. And we do not have a grip on this. It's taking place all over the countryside, and we're not even aware of it. And if you ever drive through the countryside of Pennsylvania, you still see the oil pumps going. Well, think of all the ones that you don't see. And think of all the gas wells that never had pumps on them, but used to be piped in. They're abandoned. There are hundreds of thousands of abandoned wells out there leaking methane. If you look at the graph on the left, the blue one, the blue is less than 10 days of 90-degree temperatures, which is what we're used to. That's what it's been historically. Most of Pennsylvania only had a few days of over 90-degree temperatures each summer. Last year, 2017, Harrisburg had 35 days of more than 90 degrees. But in 15 years, Erie will have more than 30 days of over 90 degrees. That's hot, that's cooking people. So in addition to cooking us, it's also drenching us. Climate change has resulted in more precipitation across most of the United States, And not only more precipitation, but it's coming in these increasingly disproportionately heavy and very heavy precipitation events. So that means that not only do we get all of this extra water, but it comes all at once. There's this scouring action that occurs with our streams that makes it very hard for the creatures that live in those streams, for the fish and for all those multitudinous other creatures that support the web of life. Then we get these huge flooding events, the streams are scoured. It's a huge problem. The idea of the storm of the century is passé. The storms of the century are now occurring every few years. It's almost a joke. This is one of our beautiful state forests. This is the Loyalsock State Forest over in Lycoming County in northeast Pennsylvania. And in 2011 and in 2016, they had 2 1 in 1,000 year flooding events. Obviously, we need to recalibrate that. The last one, the second one in 2016, took out a pipeline that runs through the national forest, or the state forest. And that pipeline dumped 55,000 gallons of gasoline into the Loyalsock Creek, and then into the Delaware River, and ultimately into the ocean. This is a heartbreaker, and it's not in Pennsylvania. This is in California. Climate change is driving infestations of invasive species that are attacking trees in all kinds of ways. In California, there's a organism that causes what they call sudden oak death, SOD. It's a microbe that close to a fungus, not precisely, but it's wiping out the oak trees in California. It hasn't come to Pennsylvania yet. This is our state tree, the hemlock. Hemlocks that keep our streams protected, filtered, and cool. The hemlock is challenged by the woolly adelgid, this exotic pest that's moved in. If you go into southeastern Pennsylvania, there are no more hemlocks. The hemlocks are gone. It's moving this way. I don't know if some of you were at the presentation out at the Tom Rich Center a while back with the film about fighting the woolly adelgid in Cook's Forest. They're making some progress, but it's labor intensive, and it's not something that could be applied to the whole state. As you'll see, of course, the hemlock is just the latest of a series of trees. When I was growing up, I heard the stories about the chestnut trees. It used to be the American chestnut, one of the dominant wood trees in our forests. One of the dominant sources of mast to feed animals and people. And it succumbed to a blight. Hemlocks some of them are hemlocks. The chestnuts are still there in our woods. I can show you some. They come up, they might get to this big around, and then they die before they're big enough to produce fruit. And then shoots come up from the roots which don't die. So the chestnuts are still there. They have not rebounded though. If you look at this graph here, it shows on the left what we're used to. And the red is maple, beech, birch dominated woods. And of course there's other mixed woods there, but those are the dominant woods. If you look forward a little bit, see what's going to take over. The two greens both represent oak dominant forests. If that SOD comes to the eastern United States, it's already been established that the red oaks will die from SOD. We face a huge crisis. And this is all fed by climate change, by the global warming. The good news, I guess, is that we now have kudzu in Pennsylvania.
Do we have one?
All this obviously affects agriculture. Here's one of the hardiness zone maps that we all use. We look at, it tells us on what we can plant, where we live, and when we can plant it. And those maps have been changed several times. If we look at the one on the left, that's from close to 1990. And then 25 years later, in 2015, is the one on the right. And you can see that all the zones have moved northward substantially. The map on the top shows the areas in red that have been affected by this zone change. So about half of the United States over the past 25 years has changed from one zone to the next zone. It's happening fast, and it's happening faster and faster. The changes in the growing season in Pennsylvania, we can look at it in this way by state or this way by region, but over the past century, the growing season in Pennsylvania has increased by 2 weeks. It's happening right here. This is the paper yesterday, the day before. You can't put your dog in the water because the water will kill your dog. This is a function of the algal blooms that are happening, which are, again, driven by climate change. Certainly not ultimately caused by climate change. We really have to get a grip on putting all the agricultural fertilizer runoff and sewage runoff into the lakes. That's what feeds the algal blooms. But it's aggravated by climate change, by warmer water. We have Lyme disease. You don't have to be my age to remember when there was no Lyme disease. Lyme disease wasn't even identified until 1982. And look at in this very brief period, 16-year period, look at how Lyme disease is spread. This is because the warmer climate has enabled the spread of the main vector for Lyme disease, which is the deer tick. We can talk about the same thing with other insects as well. The ticks that are spread by Rocky Mountain spotted fever, also that's tick-borne disease. And there are, as we well know, dengue, Zika, 3 different kinds of encephalitis that are all spread by mosquitoes. They're all being able to go further and further north because of global warming. We're deluged in plastic. And this community in particular needs to address this issue because we are cranking out plastic in this community on a regular basis. Not only is plastic creating these huge gyres in the ocean, these huge junk piles in the middle of the ocean, but they are in our water, they're in our streams, they're in our fish, they're in our bodies. Plastic is in our bodies. We're eating it because it's in the whole system today. We need to get a grip on plastic. And the production of plastic is mostly from natural gas, and again, drilling for, transporting, and processing natural gas releases methane, which merely aggravates the problem, makes it worse. In the 70s, the Congress looked at regulating the manufacture of plastics because it was already obvious at that point that we're making all this stuff, it doesn't go away. Well, what are we going to do with it? We're going to have to bury all this stuff or else burn it, neither of which is a desirable alternative. And so the plastics industry made a concerted effort to lobby Congress to say, hey, no, we're going to recycle. We're gonna do recycling.